super excited to get you guys on. A lot of the times I throw invites out. I'm almost surprised at how people are like, yeah, I'll come on. So thank you guys, first of all.
You said you would share some of that alcohol that's behind you there. So,
and with a smoking Simian, it's like we are going to get prize cigars, right?
Yeah, I haven't smoked a cigar in a couple. What was it? Maybe a month or so, and I'm getting the itch back.
Yeah. Well, is that's a source of the name of your show?
I came up with the name. It's funny. I came up with the name after I came up with the cover art back here.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so I made the cover art. I love gorillas for some reason, and I smoke a ton of weed as well, if we can say that.
So you tell us what we can say. It's your show.
Oh, you can say anything. We're on YouTube. We're everywhere. So there's no censors here.
All right, great. Yeah. Our big censorship, of course, FCC, but also the company, and more importantly than us accidentally dropping the F-bomb or saying shit, is offending a sponsor.
Right.
So
right.
I just want to know, do you have any sponsors aside from the liquor you're drinking right now? And are there any sponsors that we should not make fun of on the podcast?
No sponsors. You can make fun of anyone and everyone. I have these here for potential sponsors, maybe one day.
Yeah, come on, step it up.
Paul,
Yeah.
you look like you're laying down in bed somewhere or something,
right,
with no pants.
Well, here it is. I'm in the HJY studio.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Look at that.
All right, maybe I should sit up and act a little more respectable.
Oh no, nobody's respectable on this show. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm in what they call the production studio. So this is where we do commercials, but we got some cool posters.
Right. That is cool.
Iron Maiden action.
Right. Now you guys, you mentioned it before we started recording. You guys have been together for 30 years. Was 94 HJY a thing when you guys started working together, or was it something else?
Yeah,
yes.
It's actually this year is the 40th anniversary of the radio station. The big morning show was Carolyn Fox and Rudy Cheeks, during the 1980s. And then we were hired in 1990, and they haven't kicked us off the air yet.
Right.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. 30 years at anything. I'm not even 30 years old, so I haven't even had 30 years of life.
Well, here's a tip for you. Just get Polaroid photos of your boss, and you'll have a job as long as you want.
Right. Especially now with the cancel, like you guys were saying, you guys got to be careful with sponsors and stuff like that. But there's a lot of canceling going on, and luckily, yeah,
it is. It's an odd tightrope these days. I mean, we listened back to the content that we were doing, in the 1990s and stuff, and it's like, whoa,
yeah,
and I think that's growth of us as individuals. I mean, the entire society, let's be honest, was pretty homophobic.
Right.
Issues like that, it's like, you start to basically gaining empathy for other people. But I mean, you can't go so overboard that, we try to say that, nobody's safe, and, we still have fun, but certainly no like racist or homophobic jokes, like, we'd be borderline back in the day, and I think the whole culture was. So you almost reflect that. Al, what are your feelings on that?
Oh yeah, the show has totally changed over the years. And in addition to all that, it seems that attention spans are shorter. So we had bits that ran 3.5, 4 minutes, and now if we're going a minute and a half, we're running long.
Right.
Yeah. And how long is this? And this podcast is an hour long, right?
At least, yeah.
we better hold their goddamn attention.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to talk slower. That's all.
Yeah. I think the cool thing about the podcast, and I wanted to ask you guys this because I understand you guys have a podcast as well, is that you can kind of do some long form stuff. And I think the reason that podcasts have gotten so big is because it's just a few people speaking very candidly with each other. Kind of what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
What do you think the difference is in terms of mediums when it comes to radio and podcasts? Aside from the music, obviously you have to play music.
Well, I think Al kind of hit on the head as far as short attention span. You know, we're on inside of automobiles, and thank God, this is a horrible thing to say, but thank God America sucks at public transportation, because I think if we had a great public transportation system, that radio wouldn't still be as viable as it is. We're basically a companion for people going into work. And,
yeah,
you know,
and I mean, we still have traffic reports, for crying out loud, you know?
right.
Who really needs that? Yet you have the Waze app and you know what to do, you know, but.
Yeah, right. But I mean, that's what we're geared for, is for people in the cars, and we're competing against, you know, everybody else on the dial. So basically we, you know, try to play people's favorite songs, and that's up to our management, but we cheat like hell and play a lot of our favorites. But try to find, you know, what's topical, what's entertaining, you know, get to the punchlines quick, or, you know, if we're talking about stuff in our own lives, we really, honestly, we've made a conscious effort to keep things around 2 minutes, because research shows that unless you're making people laugh off their ass, they just, you know, they're going to be tuning out after a couple of minutes.
Sure. Yeah, I always thought that radio was interesting, because, like you said, you're in people's cars with them. You're on their, you know, you're almost at the height of their day, right, before they're going to work for most people, and then you're at the other height of their day when they're out of work. So you're almost like you said, you're like their companion. You're in their car with them, and I think we're fortunate. Radio stations in general are fortunate in the region we live in, because a lot of people are very working class, and they're going to throw the radio on. And, you know, I was thinking before this episode, I'm like, you know what? 94 HJY was literally my introduction into diving into a style of music. My dad grew up in the 70s, so everything you guys play is what he wants to listen to. So he put me and my brother on from a really young age. And was 94 HJY, was it always a classic rock station, or was that ushered in at a different time?
Well, like Paul said, 40 years ago, it was actually a beautiful music station. It was Joy 94. And then all of a sudden,
you guys ran amok.
It just, I think the first song they put on the air was a Bob Seger song. It was the Fire Down Below.
Fire Down Below, right.
And we always joked about the fact that if there was some old dude in a coma that had Joy 94 on, and then like suddenly heard Bob Seger, probably got jolted out of that coma.
Yeah.
What the hell is this crap?
Yeah, that's
and you know, our old building in East Providence is long gone now, but it still had the Joy 94 sign. It was this little flower. It was really pretty. Had that for years.
Yeah, it was elevator music. Incredible.
Yeah.
Right. So that was 94 HJY. It was Joy. What was it called? Joy
94.
Joy 94.
Joy 94. Wow. So they were playing like elevator show tunes.
Yes. Your beautiful island. Joy 94.
Wow, that's great. That's like my mom tries to tell me Kicks 106 back in the day. I know it's Hot 106 now, but it used to be Kicks 106, I suppose.
Right.
That's what I hear.
Right.
So what were you guys doing before radio? Were you guys already interested in music? Were you guys already, maybe learning about how to be hosts or something like that? What brought you guys to the radio station?
Well, HJY was not either one of our first radio jobs, because we're ancient. So I'll tell you my story. Paul's is a little bit different. I went to college, typical kind of communications courses, that kind of thing, Yep. Started working at the college radio station, did some internships at a local, I grew up in Long Island in New York, did some internships at local radio stations, and always had the cassette of my little college radio show in case the boss needed somebody. And lo and behold, one day, some weekend dude was a no-show. And I got a call from the boss saying, hey, you want to be on the air? Here's your chance. And part-time went to full-time. And I worked Long Island, New York City, Cape Cod, Boston, and then finally Mobile, Alabama, which is where Paul and I met.
Wow. Alabama. Yeah. How'd you end up in Alabama? Paul?
Well, we actually, we ended up in Alabama. We got the job here when we were working together in Alabama. I started in Alabama. My parents moved there, God, way back when, and I started on this hippie rock station when I was 19. I had older brothers, so I was deep into classic rock, from when I was a little kid, and being influenced by illicit drugs in my preteen years. So that's a whole other story.
When else are you supposed to do them?
Loved rock. I actually went to a radio school between high school and college and made an audition tape and got a cheesy license. And fortunately, in Mobile, Alabama, the local station there was this terrific album rock station. And I brought a tape by, and one of the guys got fired within a couple of weeks. I got my first job when I was 19. So, yeah, I've been on the radio, I guess, for 7 years or something? 46, something like that.
Yeah, it's 41 for me. Now you went to college, but you didn't go to college for radio. What was your major again?
No, I went for finance.
No,
nice.
no, I meant Paul. But I'll ask you too.
Oh no, he likes to torture me because I have a history degree. I'm like a real dork in a lot of different ways. But I do think in radio, I mean, it's like the technology changes so much. I mean, I literally started, playing Al too, playing records off the turntable. Sure. And then we've come full circle, with all the digital technology. We run things off a big mainframe computer, which soon will go to a cloud. But we break it up. Our last song every day is off the turntable. So and music really does sound different, with a needle on the wax. It sounds really rich. So we do a thing called Final Vinyl every day. So a chance for us to kind of dig into one of our favorites in the past.
Yeah, it's old parts like us that are buying it. It's young people that are buying. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and we just went to a local record store here in New Bedford, Mass, and bought a ton of records. And she bought new stuff on vinyl like Billie Eilish and who's the dude there who likes to wear dresses that she really likes?
Young Thug.
Her dad.
Yeah, her dad. Yeah, but no, I don't have any records. Harry
Styles. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but
My
in
favorite.
addition to that, she also bought Green Day, Elton John, things like that.
Cool.
So, but
Hey,
all
Antonio,
on vinyl.
Antonio, how old are you? You said you're like 21?
I'm 23.
23.
Yeah.
Now, what music did you grow up with, and what classic rock have you kind of embraced from listening to HJY?
Yeah. So, like I said, my dad loves all kinds of music, but if he's going to just go do something, classic rock's on the radio. So, I really deep dove into the music when I started to play the guitar. And for me, a lot of the guys I like to listen to were the guys who were real heavy on the guitar. Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh, nice.
Hendrix. I'd focus on the band, but I'd pick out the guitar player. Angus Young, Jimmy Page. Oh, my goodness. What's the guy? Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, all those guys. So
you've got excellent taste.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like I said, my that's what I grew up on, a lot of that music. And then it helped me as I got older to kind of jump into different genres, which is something I wanted to ask you guys. When you guys get home, are you like, okay, finally I can play something else? I can listen to something else? Or do you guys really is there a different genre that you guys are into aside from the classic rock?
I listen to every genre except, country. Country. You know what though? The really old country like Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson,
Hank Williams,
I really dig. And there's some new guys that are kind of more Americana. A guy named Jason Isbell, and some of that kind of stuff I really like a lot. But as far as our competitor Cat Country, I think the new country music is just so overproduced. It's kind of like Nickelback wearing boots,
Right.
Just not a fan of that. But I listen to a lot of jazz music. I listen to a lot of new, like alternative rock.
Right.
I listen to classical quite a bit, just as I'm sitting at home, kind of bagged out after a day of slaving behind the hot microphone for 5 hours.
Right, right. How about you?
But I've got music on pretty much most of the day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, see, now I'm the opposite of that. I mean, I love jazz and I will listen to things like that, but there are very many times in my day where I just like the silence. I have enough voices in my head all the time that I'm never alone.
I think that's why I play the music, is to stop them.
Right. And my daughter and I, my daughter being 14, if we're in the car, then the radio is her choice.
Sure.
So, she's playing the top 40 type stuff and all that. And so I've gotten to know quite a few things. I've been to a Billie Eilish concert. I probably never would have gone had it not been for my daughter, At least that's what I'm telling the judge right now. But, so it's interesting. I'm learning a lot, having her around. And I think she helps keep me young, at least in certain ways,
What's funny about daughters is my daughter drove when she was 16 and was able to drive to school. She took the VW Beetle to school.
Right.
And it came home with the HJY sticker scratched off the window.
Oh, no.
And I was like, what? And she goes, Dad, it's so embarrassing. And I said,
broke your heart.
I said, HJY is paying for this car. And I slapped another one on there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. The irony now is that she's like, she even likes listening to Bob Dylan and all kinds of classic rock now. So,
right.
That she came around.
Yeah. My daughter, meanwhile, she's wearing like all of my old radio station jackets, T-shirts.
Yeah.
Because she's a student in middle school. She'll be going to high school next year. But right here in Tiverton, a lot of the teachers listen to HJY. Her nickname, the gym teacher at school, calls her, "Hey, HJY, how you doing?"
Hey, that's a good nickname.
Yeah, right. So she's definitely milking it for all it's worth, wearing my jackets and stuff like that,
Right. Yeah, I would too. Vintage, like you were saying, the vintage stuff that's what people are interested in. People get records, like you said.
Try to talk our program director into opening a company store, because, you wear some of that old stuff and people are like, oh, dude, where can I get one of those? So
yeah,
we could be capitalizing on that, and we're not. So
yeah, we used to have that. We used to at Christmas time, we used to have what are called the rock shops in like the local malls, the Warwick Mall, Rhode Island Mall, and you could at least go in there and buy T-shirts and a few other things. But they really do need to return something like that. Maybe for the 40th anniversary, that would be a great thing to do.
There you go.
Just do it online. It's like, geez, it'd be easy enough.
So easy. Yep.
Really. So you could even do a giveaway or something like that for a few of them. Not all of them. We got to make some money here, but.
Absolutely. It's iHeartRadio. We need the money.
Right. So another question I had for you guys is, when you guys get ready for the show, how much of it is creative based? How much of it is it like, all right, today we're gonna, gonna do this bit?
Al and I have very, very different skill sets. I like to refer to Al as the talented one. He's got,
I would like to agree with Paul.
It's like I'm the one who obsesses on the homework and figures out the topics. Come into work with like 8 or 9 good what are the targets? Who are we going to make fun of today? What stupid thing is happening with humanity today? And Al just has a gift of extemporaneous stuff. So I kind of feel like I will, work and do like the preparation and set up the outline for the show, and then recording with Al or Jim Shorts and Jen, our newswoman. And it's just really good to have very different people and very talented people around, and, just ripping off the news. And it's been working well. There was something, I guess, in the ratings. We've been on such a terrific run, but during the pandemic and the lockdown, our percentages went like through the roof, and I think a lot of that is that people weren't driving their kids to school, so
Sure.
all of those stations, like Al was talking about, his daughter has a rule over the radio. All those stations really tanked, but our station did really well.
Well, and I think in addition to that too, when you're talking pandemic and our ratings through the roof, one of our biggest competitors is like a light rock station, which plays at every single office, in New England. Well, no one's in the office.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have a choice now, your boss says, play the wussy music in the office, but now you're home. You have a choice of playing what you want to hear. Maybe it's Van Halen and, not some sappy crap.
Right.
And we're the choice for that, so I think that helped us too.
And Providence is a very unique market just because rock stations in general, there's a couple of exceptions like St. Louis and Pittsburgh, where, rock stations usually don't show up, in the top 3 in the ratings.
Right.
Much less. But, we're one of, and like those other towns that I mentioned, St. Louis and Pittsburgh and Providence, we're kind of the only cities in the country where the rock station is kind of a number one station and by a good margin. So I don't know if it's something to do with, the town's culture or whatever, but, in a lot of ways, we've been really lucky to land in this town because there is such a love of the, classic rock. And when I say classic rock, that includes Guns N' Roses and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Metallica. Because, those bands are now 20, 30 years old now, too.
Right. Yeah, it's the working class, man. I tell you what, it's sort of a cliche, I guess, but those guys on the roof, man, banging the nails, putting the shingles up, they all have a big old nasty looking boom box that's just cranking HJY. It's amazing. You go to a construction site or landscapers, things like that, they're all listening to HJY.
Right. I was going to mention that too. When you guys were saying how during the pandemic and everything, you guys were doing great numbers. I would assume that part of it is because a lot of the essential workers are the tradesmen, the plumbers, the electricians.
Yeah. And of course that in one way is a cliche, but my wife worked at Brown Medical School forever, and the whole they had that committee in there, and it's like all the doctors there listen to HJY too. So we definitely have our higher end. Me, I'm always at some bar but if I'm sitting at the Capitol Grill and there's 4 guys with suits all around me, if the topic comes up, like all of a sudden, like they're totally listening to HJY, but they're not the ones that need to call, be caller 9 to win the free Ozzy tickets. They just go out and buy them,
Sure.
Yeah. But it is, it's like we've been lucky because HJY, and like we said, rock is really a part of the fabric of Providence and Rhode Island and Southern New England. And we've just been kind of writing that obviously for 30 years. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think the longevity is a huge thing. Like you said, you guys have been around forever. Also, I think when anything big or anything exciting comes to Rhode Island, you might even see people when you're watching a movie and they mention Rhode Island or Providence, everybody jumps up. Whoa. So when there's like, if there's a show, a big concert coming by, you guys are talking about it, everybody wants to listen in. Everyone's excited. Everybody's going to be at the Dunk. Everyone's going to be in the area. So another thing that I think we're all excited for, or most people are excited for, is for these concerts and these types of things to come back to fruition. Right. I know I miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. I bought tickets for last year's Fenway Park Hella Mega Tour, with Green Day, Fall Out Boy, and who's the third band? Can't remember now. But and it got postponed, and now it's supposed to be this coming August. And we're keeping our fingers crossed. Supposedly, if all goes well in Massachusetts, August 1st, they will start allowing outdoor venues to pretty much do everything the way they were before. and August 5th is what the concert's scheduled for. So it's like right there on the line. One little thing goes wrong, and they'll probably have to postpone it again for another year, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's weird how there's some states and some regions just in the world, I guess, that they're like on either side of the spectrum. Like, for example, this past weekend, they had a UFC event in Florida with an entire crowd, full crowd, no masks, no nothing. But then you have all of Canada completely enclosed in, and people are getting sick. Things are getting worse. It's just interesting how there's different places that, you know, Texas, Arizona, some of these places, they don't care. And it's almost, I don't want to say that things are getting better, but they're not getting worse. I don't know. It's a very slippery slope, I think. It's like a balancing act that's going on right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, the numbers are going down. I mean, more people are getting vaccinated. So,
right.
Except for India.
Is India bad? Is that the bad one?
Yeah.
Oh, it's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But, you know, you're talking, you know, like one of the poorest countries. So,
yeah.
And the most densely populated.
Getting back to live music, it's like, I mean, that's kind of my hobby at this point in my life with an empty nest, is that we have been, you know, before the lockdown, it was going to 1 or 2 or 3 shows every month, whether it's the Narrows or one of the smaller venues around here. But yeah, man, just can't wait until we get back up. And here's hoping that by, you know, midsummer that everything's up and running.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure the indoor venues won't really be up and, you know, anything that they sold and had to postpone, if it's indoors, there's no way you can pack that many people back in again, you know?
Right.
But they might be able to book some new shows, you know, with all the regulations and everything, and that would be great. It would be great to see that.
Yeah, those it's funny because you wouldn't think that those events would have, aside from the general knowledge of us being like, oh, that's a lot of fun, you wouldn't think that not being able to go to those would have such an effect on just general populace morale, if that's the term we can use. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was thinking, because we're talking about, you know, how we got into radio, and Al took a different route than I did and all of that. But Al and I were once swapping stories about like guys who were like real druggies that we'd worked with. And I was telling him a story about this dude that was selling leather coats out of the back of his car. He was living in his car and selling. This is a guy that I worked with who was making a good salary, but was living out of his car because he was just, you know, buying so much coke.
Right.
So Al's telling me a story about a guy that he'd worked with out on Cape Cod.
And yeah, and I would walk in the morning, you know, to do the morning show, and he'd be there, you know, on the receptionist's desk, you know, doing lines first thing in the morning. And he also like had no money, was crashing at friends' places, sleeping in his car.
Didn't you tell me at one time you guys went to a restaurant together and you left a tip, and then as you're leaving, he kind of circled back around and like snatched cash off the table?
Right. You know, it's so funny. You remember that scene in Groundhog Day? Chris Elliott does the same thing.
Yeah, right.
He's trying to pick up that chick.
Yeah, right.
And they're going inside for the big party where Bill Murray's playing the keyboard.
The piano, yeah.
And he throws money down, and then he comes back and he takes some of his tip back. Right. Uh-huh. So it was just like that. And I literally had to grab this guy's hand and go, "What are you doing? Yeah. This is the tip." And he's like, "Oh, well, I was going to come back later and blah, blah, blah." Yeah. I'm like, no.
So we're going back and forth with one another. We're trying to one-up each other with stories about this guy who was such a cocaine degenerate.
Right.
And then we get to the end of the conversation, and
it's the same freaking guy.
Who would have thought?
I worked with him in Cape Cod. Then he went to Boston, and then he went to Washington, D.C., which is where Paul met him.
And he was so talented. He was so funny, but he was so wired all the time.
Yeah,
right.
Sadly and not unpredictably, I guess he ended up dying a few years later, just you know, from cocaine overdose. But those were the really wacky days of radio. I guess by the time that the 90s rolled around and we started here, of course, I was a young dad at the time, so I was ultra responsible, but there's a lot of crazy stories of HJY in the 1980s and the drugs and sex that apparently went on.
Yeah.
Thank God we had the entire studio disinfected when we came in. But it was kind of a wild party spot, before we got there.
Sure. Yeah. It's you see it a lot in musicians. I've always said I want my artists, whether it's, music or comedy or any of that stuff, acting, I want my artists to have horrible, horrible childhoods, traumatic. They do drugs because it's weird, but very often the guys who had the worst lives are the ones who are really, really good at something.
That you know what? That is so true. And I really think of a lot of the really great songwriters and artists, either had missing fathers or, deep, kind of sad family life. That's a great observation. It really is.
Well, and for me personally, too, the best comedians, guys like Bill Burr, the guy did not have a happy childhood. And he just makes me freaking laugh out loud. And the things he said, I'm just like, holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, I don't want somebody, who, I know Jerry Seinfeld is talented, but I don't really care about, the extra sock in the washing machine. And
tennis shoes. And
Right. Yeah. That just is my style of comedy,
I agree. I wanted to bring that up because I think I know the answer, but you guys seem to be like you'd be fans of stand-up comedy.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you think about it, and Al and I have a common hero. And as a child, I think he did more to form both of our sense of humor than anybody, and that's George Carlin.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He was not only funny and irreverent, but he would say, like political shit that was just like so concise, calling out hypocrisy. And I think that's kind of the key to our show is calling out society's hypocrites, because, civilization's just always so full of that.
Sure.
Yeah. And Carlin was the groundbreaker with all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff, you listen to it now and it might seem really tame, but at the time, man, he was just crossing lines that people were putting in front of him. He was just stepping over them constantly.
Right.
And I think that's the whole, you try to think of rock and roll in the context. It was the same thing. And during the same time, during the 1960s, because we had such a sanitized, especially on media, on television, such a sanitized white world. And I think both comedy at the time with Carlin and some others, and rock and roll, it was basically, saying,
it was breaking down those barriers.
Yeah, life isn't this sanitized white man's perfect world, So, and I think I don't know if that has something to do with rock's longevity. It's just weird to think about, all these bands that, are having 50th or even longer anniversaries like Stone, and how kind of relevant the music is. And somebody as young as you, who's like totally embraced it as well. And in a way, it's hard to believe that in a way it is timeless, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think any great artistry is timeless. That's what makes it great.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Al? I cut you off.
I was just going to say, my daughter's Instagram posts, I'll check them out just to see like where her head's at. But, she's got quotes from songs from the 60s that relate to her life now. And I'm just blown away. But how do you know that song? Like, how do you even know that song?
Yep.
So I'm impressed. I'm not just amazed, but I'm impressed,
Yeah, I remember being a kid in like the 5th grade and the teachers being astonished at the library of music that I had. Like I'd be bringing up bands before their time, that they'd put on music and I'd be like, can we throw on some Buffalo Springfield or some, something.
Now, Antonio, did that all come, was your dad you said he was like a real music freak? Is that where you got it from?
I think so.
Or on your own?
I think so. He, my whole life he was, always into music. He always wanted me to play instruments. I played the saxophone for a couple years when I was a kid. Then I picked up the guitar later on. So a lot of it was the research, because you ever talk to somebody and they're like, "Oh, I'm running out of music. I don't know what to listen to," and I'm like, probably because it takes a little bit of time to build up a new library. Like, you kind of have to do a little bit of research. Like, I like the way this guy sounds. Let's see what he sounds like here. Let's see if there's anybody that sounds like him. And it takes a little bit of time. I feel like people, I try not to get stale with the music I listen to. I try to listen to all different things.
Well, you can go down a wormhole forever,
Yes.
on the internet. And to me, that's the greatest thing about the internet is, all this music that's been recorded since the early 1900s, that you can just tap into something and find out the roots of it and all the variations and all that stuff.
Yeah. As soon as I, I'll watch an interview, or, for example, I watched the movie Ray for the first time. It's an older movie, 2004 or whatever, but I watched it for the first time. And after that, I just had a brand new appreciation, not only for Ray Charles' music, but a lot of the music from that generation, Sam Cooke, those type of things. So sometimes it's just out of nowhere. I have just the spark, and I hope it happens for other people as well, but you just have the spark where it's like, I'm going to start listening to this. I want to see what this guy's about, or this person,
Well, and I think, that the two recent movies, the Elton John movie and the Queen movie,
yes,
both really got a lot of young people interested in those bands again as well.
Yeah, I think it's always a great thing when some entity can shed light on almost a forgotten piece of history, or a forgotten piece of just part of some genre of music, of art, of stand-up, of something like that,
Yeah, I mean, those guys in Queen, man, they were ready to pack it up totally, and they were going nowhere. This movie comes out, all of a sudden everybody's interested. They get Adam Lambert going, and they've got a world tour on their hands,
Right. Yeah, real big. I just wanted to touch back on stand-up comedy, because that's one of my favorite things ever. So it's funny that you guys brought up George Carlin, because I grew up on him as well. And the more research I've done and the more I've deep dove into stand-up as a whole, I'm realizing that the best kinds of stand-up are, and where the artistry really comes in, is when the comedian says something that is hilarious, it's funny, but then after you hear it, you go, he's right, or she's right. Like, that's, everybody in the room was thinking it. He was that the comedian was able to say it in a funny way and make people be like, he's right about that.
Yeah. Chris Rock was great at that. I'm not Italian, but growing up in New York, I had a dozen Italian friends, and to me, Sebastian Maniscalco is so freaking funny.
Yes.
Because it's my friend's parents. Like, oh my God, my best buddy Mel Leone, man. I'd go to Mel's house, and everything that Sebastian's talking about, they were doing, yelling, screaming, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So just totally relatable.
Yeah.
And Tony, what you were talking about as far as it being, true, and you're able to, say something humorous and make a point at the same time. I'm trying to think. I think it was Mel Brooks who said that comedy is the best weapon.
Yes.
Because, and of course, with his generation going through such anti-Semitism and World War II and all that, it's like there almost is no defense. If you can make people laugh at a dictator, if you can make somebody laugh at a fascist, in that sense, it disarms their power, and that the average person finds them as a comical figure, instead of a political leader. So Mel Brooks was always saying, comedy is by far the best weapon. If it's used correctly, you can do much more than you could with guns.
Right. And I think, especially in a time of extreme censorship that we're sort of dealing with now, you kind of need those guys who push the envelope and find the line and cross it, because without that, I almost feel like comedians don't. It's one of the professions where like you can't judge them based on that, because it's their job. It's their job to just make fun of things and be cynical.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, there's things overboard. You don't want to go Kramer, right? You don't want to bug out like Kramer did, but there's I think within reason, the edgier, the funnier in my mind.
Yeah, you are correct. And that's kind of the fine line that, and like I said, as we've gotten older and appreciate other perspectives, is that we have kind of altered the line as we go along.
Right. Now, as we get closer to wrapping this thing up, I wanted to ask you guys, how do you feel? I may have alluded to this earlier, but how do you feel about? Al left.
Oh no, he dropped off, huh?
Oh no.
Boy, that's almost tragic.
Right. Well, I'll ask you while you're here. Maybe he'll join back in a second.
Okay.
How do you feel about radio as a medium today in terms of entertainment, in terms of maybe even advertising? Here he is. He's back.
Oh, there I am. I was going to go over here. Whoa.
Look at this.
Did you get connected back? Good.
I lost you at you don't want to go Kramer.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think, the thing about radio is that there were not a lot of alternative ways to consume music in previous decades.
Sure.
And obviously that's changed radically in the last 15 or 20 years. So, and it's kind of true in research is that when people are consuming radio now, it's more in their car, less at home than they used to.
Sure.
And it's more for companionship. So, us talking after records, whatever we're talking about, just to make it topical, hopefully make it, funny, entertaining. The people are kind of looking for companionship in radio.
Sure.
So, the internet has affected the established mediums in different ways. Newspapers taken the hardest hit, and I want to say it's incredibly tragic for local journalism to take a dive, because you're not going to have people watching the police, or you're not going to have people watching big business.
Sure.
Like if you lose your local journalist. So newspapers take the biggest hit from the internet, because there's 10 million different news sources. How many are reliable? I don't know.
Right.
Television has taken the second biggest hit. From the internet as far as advertising pie. And radio has taken a small hit, although, a lot of our component is our online presence as well. But I think the uniqueness of us being a companion inside of automobiles will keep us, at least to some degree, relevant.
Right. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Al,
muted.
I think
I'm asking
Al's
you to
picking us up, but we're not picking him up.
Right.
Al,
He's
do you want to
muted.
hang out and then hang
we
over
go.
my here?
I'm unmuting now.
There
I
we
was
go.
going to say that radio is also, the most affordable for the local business guy. So
Right.
if you're going to get the word out about your store, your restaurant, whatever, you can still afford, even the Paul and Al show at 94 HAY.
Right.
So, you just, it's just, one of those things that still makes you feel like, wow, this is my hometown show.
Right.
I know that there are some people that maybe are tired of radio because of the ads, or they feel that, I'm hearing Freebird again. I want to hear something different. And for them, those other things like the Spotify's of the world are the place to go,
Right.
But
yeah, like I said,
we're lucky that we have this real loyal listenership that has been sticking with us for a really long time.
Right. Yeah, you guys built a huge community, so that's like the thing. that.
Well, and then we're picking up because our ratings among young people like you are good. So,
Right.
like you were saying, the great art and a lot of the music we play is in a way timeless. So trying to get all of you young folks out there, you fit into that demo.
Right.
Well, and that's also why, going back to, when you try to edit your breaks so that you're not talking for 5 minutes, if you can still say the same thing in a minute and a half instead of 4 or 5 minutes, that leaves more music time for music, which is great for us because that's what we're all about.
Right. You had alluded to it a little bit, Al, about how everything is very specific now. Marketing, all that stuff. It's very specific. If you want to listen to something specific, you can just YouTube it. You can Spotify, Apple Music, anything like that. But there is something to be said about having your station. You come on in the car, you have your station. You have the guys that you listen to every morning or the girls. And that's part of it. I think that is, you guys, obviously you guys would know better than I would, but I think that's what gives you guys the edge. You guys are still like everybody's companion, like you said. And it's great to see that even after 30 years, you guys are able to adapt and see where your strengths are and be like, this is now there's a little bit that we have to change a little bit what we're doing, but we're still us. We're still here doing our thing.
Yeah. And it's basically just dealing with, like the topics of the day, and
right.
Trying to be topical and riffing off that, making fun of, whatever the target is for the day.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and quite simply the fact that a lot of, I used to do a lot of voice characters on the show back in the early days, and quite simply, they all frickin' died. So, we as we got older, so did the people we made fun of.
Sure. Right. I mean, all the Ted Kennedys and Playboys all gone. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to ask you, Al. When you started, how long have you been doing the food blog, and where are some of your favorite places, and why? Are you like a natural foodie? Have you always been a foodie?
Well, I've always enjoyed eating, yes, but right. when I was working my way through high school and college, it was always in a restaurant. And that's when I started realizing, wow, this is kind of cool. I enjoyed doing this. And so then, but I was broke, so I couldn't go anywhere. I was just cooking at home, but that was about it. And, when I got a little older and I was single and I didn't have really many expenses, I could finally like travel and go to fancier restaurants and stuff like that. And that just kind of snowballed after a while. And, so the blog is just sort of a reflection of, what I enjoy cooking now, as well as some of the great places we have here to eat. Providence, Rhode Island is a great food town.
Yes.
Oh, it's the best.
Yes.
And actually the state itself has some really amazing restaurants too. So that's awesome. And then right up there on the list, Portland, Maine. Great food town and lots of fun to go up there too. Yeah. So, and very much like Providence in a lot of ways, Portland is actually a little bit easier in the sense that you can walk everywhere, which is especially good if you're drinking.
Yes.
Getting back in the car is never a good thing when you're having fun.
Right.
But I just really enjoy it. I've over the years now made friends with a lot of the local chefs and things like that. So it's been really fun. And I just, I don't really know who is reading that blog, but I enjoy writing it. And it's also a way for me to have a place sort of like, the old days, you had a little recipe book at home that you kept, in a drawer somewhere.
Sure.
My recipe book is online. When I'm trying to remember a recipe that I did and I want to recreate it again, I go online and I look it up.
Sure.
So it also serves that benefit for me too. As I get older and I can't remember what the hell the ingredients are, I can go online and look it up.
Right. Yeah, we're super fortunate, like you mentioned. Rhode Island, honestly, even the East Coast in general, just the food.
Yeah.
Because we have so many different cultures. Because then you go to like the Midwest and you're like barbecue. That's it.
Yeah. I think a huge component is Johnson and Wales.
Yes.
really great kids coming out of school there, and they love Providence. So they want to stay in town.
Yep.
So, wherever they start, it almost like filters up. And I've got to say, with friends all over the country, that people just say Providence is like the best food town in the country in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of opportunity. Every other week you see a new pop-up shop for a couple of weeks. It's down there selling, something interesting that nobody's ever had. So
be interesting to see, because a lot of places had to close during the pandemic. Coming up on the other side, once we can get 100% capacity, a lot of these people are going to either reopen under, their old name or maybe new places around town. So
let's hope they can afford to reopen.
Right.
Yeah, right. Man.
Now, Paul, how long have you played music for? I understand you're a musician. How long have you played for?
That's very interesting. I played trumpet as a kid.
Okay.
I bought a fantastic classical guitar in college. I actually had to sell a car to buy it because it was so expensive then.
Wow.
And I've held on to it. And when I first moved to Providence, I took classical guitar lessons. So, learned to read music and play classical back then. And of course, raising kids, I didn't have time to do it much, but I've jumped into it pretty deep over the last, 5 or 6 years with the Empty Nest. So, I'm not a good guitar player, but it's such an enjoyable thing to do.
Sure.
I find it to be like just a terrific hobby that I usually play for, 45 minutes or an hour, probably every other day.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with people starting a new art or a new hobby or whatever, it's always like at the beginning, people get wrapped up in being really, really good. I want to be really, really good. I want to shred. I want to, whatever. I want to be on a stage or something like that. And I think people are forgetting that you can just play the guitar. Like you can just play it in your house, or you can just, you can do a podcast from your second bedroom in your apartment. You know what I'm saying? Nobody even needs to listen. But yeah, I think people forget that you can just do the thing sometimes. You can just do it. And eventually you might get better, sure, but you don't need to be in front of a crowd. You don't, none of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Both my sons play guitar, and it was interesting because not that they didn't play video games, but they played them a lot less than their friends. And I just thought it's just such a great, music itself, learning to play it, I think it's a great discipline, but it's also a great way to relax and clear your mind and, just stay in the moment.
Yeah.
Turn that inner voice off.
Sure. Yeah. Which is
unless you have the piano teacher that I had when I was a kid, who whacks you with a yardstick. But other than that, it's
it's a great thing. Other than that,
yeah.
Well, all right, guys. I definitely appreciate you both for coming on.
And we're going to post a link to your podcast, so we'll have that up at our website.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Yep.
Did you guys want me to send you a link, or are you guys good? You can find it.
Yeah.
If you can do that, that'd be awesome. We'll put on our Instagram page as well as Facebook and all that stuff.
Okay, that's awesome, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate you both. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Great. And thanks for having us on, and good luck with the podcast.
Yes, appreciate it,
right,
guys.
Yeah.
All right, man. Take care.